Today, I am going to take you through my entire video production process, all the way from ideation to promotion. We've got 10 steps to go over, so let's jump right in. When it comes to coming up with ideas, this is both the easiest and the hardest part. It's easy because I have plenty of ideas. That's not a problem. However, not all of these ideas work well in sort of a, say, 10-minute encapsulated narrative form. A lot of them are just kind of all over the place, wishy-washy, sort of vague and ambiguous. For an idea to work, it has to be something that translates well to the medium, to a 10, 15, 20-minute video. I also want to find something that is kind of evergreen in nature, something that has value both today as well as years from now, because I don't want to have to make videos each and every week only to have them fall away in terms of relevance. I want evergreen content. I'm also looking for ideas that can reach different audiences. So as a college professor, I have my students, so I want my videos to work well with students, but I also want the videos to be of interest to professionals, to business people, to other faculty members, and so forth. So on one hand, I want it to be narrow and specific. On the other hand, I want it to be broadly accessible. This is pretty challenging. Actually, it's more than challenging. We're not supposed to do this. The whole mantra is to niche down, so get more and more specific to a more and more narrow audience. But I don't do that. I should, but I don't. I also want the topic of the video to have a clear and immediate value to the viewer, something that they can latch onto and say, yes, I can use this. This is worth my time to watch. Now, there are a couple of things I'd like to invite you to bear in mind when you're coming up with an idea. One is you're going to be tempted to say, oh, well, somebody else has already made a video about this, so I guess I can't do that. No, reject that outright. Truth is, you have your own specific take, your own approach to the idea, and so, yeah, go ahead and do it. One thing I heard one time that I really like is, if it hasn't been done by you, then it hasn't been done. So, yeah, go for it. Now, another thing I do during the ideation stage is I determine the title for my video. Yes, the title very, very early on. This is important because the title sort of acts as a North Star for me. So as I'm going through the rest of the process that we'll discuss in this video, I know where I am taking this video. The title is sort of my marker that I'm aiming for. Now, when you set up a title, it's important that you understand the intent of the viewer. Why are they watching your video and what are they hoping to get out of it? The title should, at least to some degree, tell the viewer what they can expect in such a way that it speaks to their desires, why they want to watch it in the first place. When outlining your material, it's important to bear in mind your purpose and your audience. Why are you writing this? What is it going to deliver? What information will it contain? And who will find this beneficial? Having a clear purpose and audience will act as a guide as you develop your content. You also want to outline your material in such a way that it makes sense sequentially and has a good narrative flow to it. Some videos sort of follow a chronological flow, such as, well, this video right now is following the steps that you take chronologically in making a video. Others kind of offer up different principles, say like the top 5 principles of A, B, and C, something of that nature. Another way you can approach this is with a clear thesis statement, and then your material will support that thesis. And then, of course, there's just good old-fashioned storytelling, which is a fantabulous way to convey information to your audience. In all of this, as you're outlining your material, look for ways to deliver it in good, compartmentalized, bite-sized chunks. This makes it easier for your audience to sort of absorb and digest the information that you're delivering. And frankly, it also makes it a lot easier for you as the writer to get your thoughts down on paper. One thing I try to do when I'm outlining my material is imagine who I'm speaking with. So if I'm speaking with a student or with a professional or a faculty member, I kind of keep that person in my mind's eye. That way I can make the material a little bit more specific and relevant to that psychographic and hopefully come out with something pretty good. When doing your research, you want to figure out what is the correct level of credibility, of academic credibility, do you need to bring to this. We're not publishing peer-reviewed articles or anything like that. However, we want to make sure that we're delivering good, solid, reliable information. So where are you going to get your sources? To what degree are you going to cite them? Things like that. Now, as you do this, try to avoid using sources that are behind paywalls. If your viewer wants to go back and review the source themselves to learn more, well, it's kind of a pain in the butt to find out that you need to pay $30 for access to the article. So instead, use sources that cite the original, but give a good overview of it. That way, the viewer can still have access to the crux of the source. And then one more quick note about citations. Determine whether or not you're going to include citations in your description or in the video itself so that, well, when you're doing the research, you can go ahead and pull those citations right then and there instead of realizing later on that you should have done that and then having to backtrack to find the original source again. Now, when you're researching, be careful that you don't get lost running down the rabbit hole. I get really into the research, and it is a ton of fun to find new things and chase threads and so on and so forth. But you know what? Time is finite, so make sure you stay on task and focus on those things that are necessary for whatever you're writing. I always like to start with the article because it allows me to do several things. First, I'm simply a writer, so it's how my mind works. It makes it easy for me to get my thoughts out of my head and onto something else. It also helps me thoroughly think about the content and how I want to feed it up to my audience. Next, it gives me some, more or less raw material that I can then transfer over into a script format. Now, when writing the article, if that's a step you're going to include, make sure you write it in your speaking voice, in a format that works well when spoken. It's an interesting thing. When you write something, it's not really meant to be spoken aloud, and so when you read it out loud, it sounds kind of funky. Read through what you're writing several times to make sure that it sort of makes sense when said out loud. You also want to kind of figure out what's the tone you want to follow in your video. Are you going for formal or conversational or playful, reverent, irreverent? Now's the time to kind of establish that tone. Now, one thing to consider when you're writing your article is how you are going to proofread it and edit it afterwards. I have a whole video about how to proofread and edit your own writing. It's actually pretty challenging. So if you go to the description below, you'll find a link for that. To create the script, I take the article that I wrote and I transfer it over to a spreadsheet. Now, the spreadsheet includes several headers, including script, blocking, sound effects, overlay, animation, B-roll, and post. Script is where I include what I will be speaking during that particular take. Blocking is how I want to position myself to the camera. Sound effects, any sound effects I want to add. Overlays, same thing, kind of those pop-up words you see now and again. Any animation I want to include, as well as B-roll, which is additional video, such as what you're watching right now. And then post is anything I want to add to the video during the post-processing process. At the end of all this, I will have a spreadsheet that I can then print and have in front of me when I'm doing the shoot. And hey, if you're interested in the template that I just showed you, there's a link to it in the description below. You can go to nutshellbrainery.store and download it for free. But again, you don't have to search for it. Just go to the link and you can go ahead and download that. B.O.A.T.S is an acronym I came up for myself that basically means B-roll, overlays, animation, thumbnail, and sound effects. These are elements that I want to include in my video, but I want to take the time before I shoot it to gather everything together. After I shoot the video and start editing, I don't want to have to go back to try to develop these things or find B-roll or create animations, things like that. I want to have them all in hand and ready to go. So therefore, B.O.A.T.S. So I collect B-roll that I want to use as well as any attributions that I need to hold on to so I don't get, demonetized, zinged, or sued, or what have you. Same thing goes with any pictures, graphics, clip art, or sound effects that I want to use. Yeah, you actually want to be really careful on this. You can get flagged, you can get fined, you can get sued, you can get demonetized. It's scary. In other words, let me put it this way. Getty Images, yeah, they're run by the Gambino family out of New Jersey, all right? So be careful on making sure that you have full rights to use any materials that you include in your video. Now, yes, it's true, I don't need the thumbnail now. However, experience has taught me that when it's time to publish the video and I then realize I never got around to designing the thumbnail, that is enormously frustrating. I mean, I'm ready to publish. I don't want to have to go back and design something. So to remedy this, I designed the thumbnail first. That way, it's ready to go at time of publication. Now, for my own videos, I use the Adobe Creative Cloud, which includes Premiere Pro, After Effects, Illustrator, Photoshop, Audition, all the things that I need to pull these things together. Now, since I am a college professor, I can get this suite pretty affordably, but even if I had to pay the full price, I probably would because it's pretty tremendous. Nevertheless, there are a ton of options available to you, so choose what works best for you. Now, one thing we have to acknowledge is that thumbnails are, well, they're kind of tricky, right? I mean, everybody says, hey, you got to really make sure you have a good thumbnail because that's what causes people to click. They don't watch if they don't click, and they don't click if the thumbnail is not inviting. Well, it's true. And there's all kinds of voodoo and science and art into developing thumbnails. But one thing I'll ask you to consider is, are you putting together a video that is going to be found through search, or is it a browsing video, a clickbait video? So in other words, if you're putting together a video that's going to be found through search, such as I do, then the thumbnail, luckily, and the title is somewhat less important. So long as it describes what it is that the video offers, you're in pretty good shape because they found you through search. On the other hand, if you're putting together videos that you're hoping people will click on as they're just browsing and, trying to empty their brains in the afternoon, well, now your title and thumbnail need to be a little more provocative, a little more clickbaity, something that would cause someone to click on it, even if 2 seconds ago they had no interest in the topic. So just something to consider. Now, when I shoot my videos, I just read from a script. Well, not exactly. I take a look at the script, I practice it a bit, and then I face the camera and do my thing. Now, I have tried teleprompters before, and they work pretty well, but I don't know, it just doesn't work for me. Nevertheless, I've seen them work really well for others, so you do you. I also shoot in 4K. This way, it allows me to zoom in and out without losing quality when I publish in the standard 1080p. Now, one thing I find is that checklists, they're your friend. There are so many times that I have forgotten something or another, and it just aggravates me to no end. So I have checklists around light, sound, camera, the room, you name it. If I skip a checklist because I feel oh so confident that I have it down, I can pretty much guarantee you I forgot something. In fact, in this video you see me shooting here right now, I did forget one of the lights. Now, where possible, I recommend you have a backup mic running because, boy, if you miss the sound, it is so aggravating. Furthermore, oftentimes I'll have one mic that for some reason or another isn't working well, so I can always pull in from the other mic. I also recommend that you have a bottle of water around because when you're doing your thing, your mouth is going to get dry. Now you'll notice I never turn off the camera. I just go ahead and turn it on and then do my thing. Now, to help in the editing process, I have a couple of hand signals that I use. One, if I put my hand straight up, that means that was a good take. Go ahead and use it. On the other hand, if I cross my arms, that tells me that was a bad take, so skip it. As I say, when I'm going along and doing my rough edit, these hand signals help me figure out what I can trash and what I should keep. Now, by the way, if you're kind of new to shooting and talking to a lens and so forth, I have a video that talks about all the tips and tricks I use to speak naturally and, well, at least somewhat coherently to a camera in an empty room. So there's a link to it in the description below. Go ahead and click on that, and it'll give you the tips and tricks you need to talk to the camera. Depending on the complexity of your video, the editing process might be pretty straightforward or could take several days. It all depends on what you're trying to bring to the party. Of course, I use Adobe Premiere Pro, so I bring the videos in and I set up my bins and make sure that the audio is synced and so forth. And then, if I need to, I record any voiceover pieces or AVR, that's automatic voice replacement, especially if I screw up somewhere but don't want to reshoot the footage. And then I start pulling everything together. I'll do the sound editing, sound sweetening as we call it, and syncing everything up. This includes syncing up the B.O.A.T.S elements, the B-roll, the overlays, animation, and the sound and so forth. I also add my color adjustment layers and just do my best to make something interesting. Now, as I mentioned before, sometimes these videos are pretty straightforward, other times they're rather complex. What you're looking at here is far and away the most complex video I've ever put together. Hey, incidentally, so I said this was the most complex video that I've ever put together. Don't fool yourself into thinking that your videos need to be insanely complex and animated and sound effects and graphics. Truth of the matter is, my best performing videos are just like voiceover on a PowerPoint presentation. I know it makes no sense to me. Voiceover on a PowerPoint presentation with no animation, completely static slides, and yet those are the ones that do the best. These big, fancy feature videos I do, they don't do so terribly well. I make them more for me. So anyway, don't feel like your timeline needs to look like what we just saw. So publication is pretty straightforward. I go ahead and drag my file on over, and then I update the title. Then I pull over my description. What I have is a template with my description all ready to go that I can just cut and paste on into the field. I will update it later on, but truth of the matter is the vast majority of the description is the same every time, so why not just keep a template? I then drop in that thumbnail that I created earlier, so that's nice to have all handy and ready to go. I then, of course, add some tags. Now, conventional wisdom says that tags don't really mean that much anymore, but hey, they're there, they're available, so I go ahead and drop them in. Then, of course, I monetize the video. I don't include all the options because some of these ads really bug me, and if they bug me, I'm not going to bug my viewers with them. And then I go through all the rest of the legal mumbo jumbo to make sure that I'm not, offending anyone or anything like that. And then I can schedule the video. Of course, I can go ahead and publish it right away, but in this case, I'm going to go ahead and schedule it because I want to release this video in conjunction with, well, the video that you're watching right now. I also want to have some time to pull together some marketing material, some promotional material, and templates, checklists, things like that for the online store. And then it's all ready to go. Of course, you don't want to close this window while it's loading. You want to make sure the computer is up and running and chugging away until the load is completely done. Hey, and incidentally, I'm publishing this at the end of the year, which according to my analytics is absolutely the wrong time to publish. The vast majority of my viewers are students and faculty, and guess what? They're not watching lecture videos at the end of the year or the beginning of the year. They're on vacay, right? They're vacationing. So, yeah, but it just so happens that that's when I'm doing this video. Now, I will be the first to admit that I'm not very good at promotion, which is pretty ironic since my bachelor's degree was in advertising. Anyway, I just don't know how to play this game very well. Of course, like everyone else, I have some social media accounts, so I'll go ahead and get the video out there. I also have a newsletter that I send out to a handful of subscribers, so they get the information. I also send out emails to my peers and to others who I think may be interested in the video. And you know what? As a college professor, I can email my students. But that's really the extent of it. This is an area where I really feel like I have a lot of room for improvement. Now, one thing I invite you to consider as you're figuring out how to promote your videos is how to influence the influencers. So what do I mean by this? Well, okay, I can go ahead and put on my social media, hey, I published a video, and my followers may check it out, okay? But now, if I can get people who are influential in their circles to promote my videos, well, now I am influencing those who have influence over others. So, for instance, I am going to let other faculty members know that I've published this video, and so they will in turn tell their students, or they may tell other faculty and so forth. So you want to kind of figure out, yes, who's in my immediate circle, but who in your circle has circles of their own? So that's what I mean by influencing the influencer. So that's a quick, or maybe not so quick, overview of everything I go through to create these videos. Now, of course, there's a ton that I didn't go over because, well, holy hell, you don't want to watch all that. Nevertheless, if you would like me to go a little deeper into any aspect of my video production process, let me know in the comments below and I'll hook you up. Furthermore, if you would like a copy of the checklist that I go over, everything we talked about today, go ahead and go to the description and I have a link to the checklist there. You can download it for free. That way you can kind of have a baseline for how to go about doing this and, of course, modify and customize it for your own needs. Now, everything you saw in this video was me working on a video called something like how to give a great presentation, how to give an engaging presentation. If you would like to actually watch the video that you just watched me produce, once again, go to the description and you can watch the video. Now, one last note, it takes me quite a while to put these things together. Generally, I spend about 2.5 to 3 hours per minute of video shoot. So if I put together a, 25-minute video like this one on how to put together an engaging presentation, Oh, 25 minutes times 3 hours? I don't know. That's too dang long, but that's what it kind of takes. That's what it means to be a solopreneur. So just kind of bear in mind that it does take some time, but you don't need to be as complicated as what you will see in the video that I produced for this. They can be a lot more simple and be just as, if not more, effective. So don't freak out over the time investment. All right, so there we go. Thank you very much for joining me. I hope this was informative. Reach out if you want to learn more, and let's make some cool crap together. All right, thanks for joining, and we'll talk again soon.